Long before memory learned how to forget, there stood a village called Alyamo, tucked between tired mountains and stubborn winds. It was said that the sun still rose every morning, yet somehow its warmth never fully reached the ground. Shadows lingered longer than they should. Laughter faded quicker than it once did. People walked with heads bowed, not from humility, but from invisible weight. The elders claimed the village had angered destiny. Others whispered that hope itself had grown weary and moved on. Children were warned not to dream too loudly, for dreams had a way of breaking hearts here. Every household carried a quiet grief, passed down like inheritance. No one remembered exactly when it began, only that joy slowly became unfamiliar. At the edge of the village lived Kemi, a young woman known more for her silence than her name. Wherever she went, conversations paused. Misfortune seemed to follow her steps. Failed harvests, broken tools, unanswered prayers. People avoided her not out of cruelty, but fear. Fear that sorrow was contagious. Each night, Kemi sat outside her hut, watching the moon struggle through the clouds. In her hands rested a small wooden box carved with symbols of old. Inside it were memories she dared not release. Regret, shame, and the echo of dreams she once believed in. The box was heavy, though empty of anything tangible. That night, as the wind carried unfamiliar footsteps into Alyamo, the dogs stopped barking. The shadows stirred. Somewhere beyond the village path, a single flame moved steadily forward, refusing to bow to the darkness. Unnoticed by most, destiny had arrived. Morning broke with unusual stillness. Villagers gathered water, tended fires, and repeated routines that required no hope, only habit. Then a murmur spread. Someone was coming. From the narrow mountain path emerged a man clothed simply, dust clinging to his sandals. In his right hand he carried a lantern. The flame inside did not flicker, even when the wind rose. Children watched from behind doorways. Elders leaned on their staffs, suspicious. The man stopped at the village square and placed the lantern gently on the ground. Light spilled outward, warm and steady, chasing shadows away inch by inch. For the first time in years, the square felt alive. "My name is Ao," he said calmly. "I am a teacher, though not of books alone." Someone scoffed. "We have no need for lessons here." Ao smiled, not in offense but understanding. "That is usually what the most tired souls say." He spoke of journeys and villages like Alyamo, places where people learned to survive but forgot how to live. He spoke not loudly but clearly. Every word landed softly yet firmly, like rain on dry earth. Kemi watched from a distance, heart racing. Something about the lantern unsettled her. It reminded her of who she once was, before fear convinced her to be small. Before leaving the square, Ao looked directly at her. Not with judgment, not with pity, with recognition. "Even the longest night ends," he said. "But only if someone is willing to wait for dawn." For reasons she could not explain, tears filled Kemi's eyes. Kemi had learned early that silence was safer than explanation. Words invited questions. Questions invited blame. so she spoke only when necessary and smiled only when expected. Once she had been different. She used to sing while fetching water, her voice carrying across the hills. She believed her life would mean something beyond survival. But when tragedy came, swift and unforgiving, it took more than it gave. Dreams collapsed. Confidence followed. The village decided her pain was a warning sign. Children were told not to linger near her hut. Elders shook their heads when her name was mentioned. Kemi accepted the role given to her, the girl who carried misfortune. That afternoon, Ao visited her hut unannounced. He did not ask permission to sit. He did not ask about her past. Instead, he observed. "You keep something locked away," he said gently. Kemi stiffened. "Everyone does." "Yes," Ao replied, "but not everyone lets it define them." She showed him the wooden box. Her hands trembled as she held it out, as though exposing a wound. "This is where I put everything that failed," she said. "If I open it, I might not survive what comes out." Ao nodded. Light does not demand bravery all at once. It only asks for honesty. For the first time in years, Kemi spoke of her fear. Not loudly, not fully, but enough. And in that moment, something shifted. The box felt lighter. Outside, unseen, the village shadows retreated just a little more. At sunrise, Ao gathered the villagers beneath the ancient baobab tree, the oldest witness to Alyamo's history. Some came curious. Others came skeptical. A few came only because there was nothing else to do. Ao placed his lantern at the center. "Darkness survives because it convinces us we are alone," he said. "But light multiplies when shared." He asked each villager to name one fear. Just one. The silence that followed was heavy. Then a farmer spoke of failure. A mother spoke of loss. A young boy admitted he felt invisible. With every confession, Ao lit a small candle and placed it beside the lantern. The light grew, not blinding but undeniable. Kemi stood at the edge, heart pounding. When her turn came, her voice barely rose above a whisper. "I am afraid that I am already broken." No one laughed. No one turned away. Ao handed her a candle. Broken things still let light through. That night, the villagers were asked to carry lanterns through the streets. One by one, flames appeared. Houses glowed. Paths became visible again. For the first time, Alyamo did not sleep in fear. Darkness returned that night, but it no longer felt threatening. The village square filled with lanterns, their warm glow reflecting in hopeful eyes. Stories poured out like long-held breath. Regrets were spoken. Dreams resurrected. Tears fell freely. Kemi stepped forward, holding her wooden box. Her hands no longer shook. "This box has ruled my life," she said, "but it is not my home." She opened it and poured its contents, letters, symbols, old tokens, into the fire. Flames rose, not violently but cleansing. As the box burned, Kemi sang. Her voice was unsure at first, then steady. The song carried across Alyamo like a blessing. The village listened, transformed. Morning arrived differently. The sun reached places it hadn't touched in years. Laughter returned, hesitant but real. Fields were replanted. Songs echoed again. Ao prepared to leave. "You won't stay?" someone asked. "My work is done," he replied. "You are the Latern-Bearers now." Kemi watched him disappear down the path, carrying no lantern this time. She smiled. Time moved forward in Alyamo, not hurried, not forced, but steady, like a river that had finally found its course. Seasons changed, and with them the spirit of the village transformed. The same paths once walked in silence now echoed with laughter, songs, and conversation. Children no longer feared the dark. Instead, they chased fireflies at dusk, believing light was something to be played with, not avoided. The villagers spoke often of the night everything changed, though the story grew gentler with each retelling. What once felt like survival now felt like growth. Lanterns hung outside homes not out of fear, but as tradition, a reminder of who they had been and who they chose to become. Kemi stood at the center of this new chapter. The girl once avoided had become the village's quiet anchor. She taught the children beneath the same ancient baobab tree where Ao once stood. But her lessons were different. She taught them how to listen to themselves, how to name fear without letting it rule them, how pain could be acknowledged without becoming identity. She told them stories not of perfection, but of becoming. She showed them the scars she once hid and explained that healing did not mean forgetting. It meant choosing not to live trapped by the past. Elders watched her with pride. Parents trusted her with their children's questions and doubts. And when travelers passed through Alyamo, they noticed something unusual. People who carried hardship lightly, because they no longer carried it alone. At night, Kemi often lit a lantern and placed it by her doorway. Not because she was afraid of darkness, but because she remembered what it meant to be lost inside it. The flame reflected in her eyes, steady and calm. The village had learned its greatest truth. Light does not disappear when shared. It multiplies. Long after the years softened memory, the story of Alyamo continued to travel beyond its borders. Merchants carried it to distant towns. Travelers whispered it beside campfires. Mothers told it to restless children on quiet nights. And though details changed, the heart of the story never did. They said that on certain nights, when the moon hung low and the wind grew thoughtful, a single lantern appeared along the mountain path leading to the village. It did not move quickly, nor did it call attention to itself. It simply glowed, steady and patient, as if waiting for someone who needed it. Some believed it was Ao, still walking the world, finding villages swallowed by silence. Others believed it was the spirit of courage itself, returning whenever fear grew too loud. And a few claimed the lantern appeared only to those standing at the edge of giving up. Kemi grew old, but never weary. On her final night, she sat outside her home, lantern beside her, listening to the sounds of Alyamo breathing peacefully. Children laughed in the distance. The same village that once forgot how to hope now lived inside it. She smiled, knowing the light no longer depended on her, or on any one person. It lived in choices, in honesty, in shared strength. As dawn approached, the lantern beside her flickered gently, then settled into a soft glow. The story did not end there. Stories like this never do. Because somewhere, right now, another village is learning how to carry its first flame. And somewhere, someone who feels broken is discovering that even the smallest light can guide them home. Fade to darkness, then light,